Okay, this is our first set of notes, and so you would want to write down everything that you see here and any examples that I do. And so let's get into it. Alright, solving equations by adding or subtracting. This is the rationale, the math behind it, or the why behind what we're doing. Alright, we need to know what the opposite is. In order for us to do this, we need to understand what the mathematical opposite is. Opposites are the same number with different signs. And so here's examples of opposites. So the opposite of 3 is negative 3, or the opposite of negative x is positive x. Alright, so that's important that you understand what an opposite is, because I'm going to use that word in a second. So let's look at this definition. Solve, I'm going to say that a lot. Solve means get the indicated variable by itself, or isolate the indicated variable, like which letter you need to get by itself. And here's an hint. Whenever you're solving an equation by addition and subtraction, we want the numbers on the side with the variable to be 0. Now that's important, that we want those numbers to be 0. And it's only the number that's on the same side with the variable that we want to be 0. So how do we make that number 0? When you combine opposites, they equal 0. So, very simply put, what we're going to do in order to solve using addition or subtraction, if the number is being added on the same side with the variable, then we subtract it. If the number is being subtracted on the same side with the variable, we're going to add it. But what you do to one side, remember you got to do to the other side of the equal sign. All this stuff is important. And so here we go. We need to solve these equations. And so I'm going to work through each one of these. And if there's a question, raise your hand and I'll call on you. I'm just kidding. I can't see you. Alright, here we go. We need to solve these. And so actually I'm going to just do this. Let's solve these equations here. X minus 10 equals 4. Now the number that's on the same side with the variable is the negative 10. Hopefully you see that. The 4 is not with the variable. So the number that's with the variable, we want it to go to 0. How do we make a negative 10 become 0? Well, we just have to add it to 10. Now, whatever I do to one side, I have to do the exact same thing, even though you can't see me. I got to do the exact same thing to the other side. Let's try that right there. And so, add 10 to both sides. You already know that. X equals 14. Think about it. 14 minus 10 equals 4. That's the only number that works. What about number 2? Now notice some people just start moving whatever number's on the left. That's not the rule. The rule says you move the number that is on the same side with the variable. In fact, you don't move it, you make it 0. So how do we make a plus 7 become 0? We subtract 7. If you haven't noticed already, and we do it to both sides, if you haven't noticed already, the problem is telling us what to do. If I see addition, I subtract. If I see subtraction, I add. And it's only with the number that's on the same side with the variable. And so now you have x equals 2. Now some teachers teach you to draw a line through your equal sign, and that's cool. I'm okay with that. I need to get rid of this 6. Why? Because solve means get the variable by itself. Remember, the variable is by itself. The variable is by itself. It didn't say on the left or the right side. It just said get the variable by itself on whatever side it's on. So if I'm adding 6, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Now that goes away like it has on every single one of them, because when I do this, that means it's 0. So it doesn't exist anymore. So that means y just comes down. Now this throws some people off sometimes. They get confused. They just write y as their answer. But remember, the equal sign always stays, and you get 0. 6 minus 6 is 0. Doesn't that make sense? What's the only number that you can add to 6 to still get 6? And that's 0. And finally, all this is true even with fractions. Now this one is a little simpler because the fractions have common denominators, but it's still true whether they have common denominators or not, or whether you're dealing with decimals or not. The rule says if your instructions are to solve and you're solving using addition and subtraction. By the way, how do I know I'm using addition and subtraction? The problem, I'm looking at the relationship between the number and the variable. Whichever number is on the same side of the variable, I'm looking at how they are related. And since these are related through subtraction, then I have to add in order to remove it. So if that's being subtracted by 1/5, I add by 1/5. It doesn't matter that it's a fraction. That goes away to 0, and you're left with 2/5 plus 1/5, and you get 3/5. And that is how that works. Now, solving using addition and subtraction is also called solving using one-step equations. Okay? So if you ever see one-step equations somewhere, this is a type of one-step equation because the only step I had to do is add 10, subtract 7, subtract 6, add 1/5. That's only one step. And so sometimes people get confused. They're just letting you know by name, solving equations by adding or subtracting is the same thing as solving a type of one-step equation. All right. This is the Yo Mama joke of the day. I like this one. Yo Mama is so fat. I took a picture of her last Christmas and it's still printing. That's kind of funny. Well, I thought it was. All right, bye guys.